morning. It is 11:30 a.m. on Thursday, August 14th, 2025, and this regular meeting of the Sandpoint Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee is now called to order in the White Pine Conference Room at City Hall, 1123 West Lake Street, Sandpoint, Idaho. For the record, I am Committee Chair Kate Huseman presiding. Also present are Vice Chair Molly O'Reilly and committee members Aaron Billings, Julie Perchinsky, Katie Steepleton, and our newest member, Sally Lakemer. Welcome, Sally. In addition to our committee, our staff liaison, city engineer Brandon Steglin is also present, along with associate planner Eric Brubaker and deputy clerk Haley Keys, who is serving as our clerk today. Our city council liaison Deb Rule is absent. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our June 12th, 2025 meeting. Hear a motion?
I so move, and I would like to congratulate Haley. The minutes really reflected our recommendations.
Cool.
And I am so appreciative. I think thank you.
Yeah,
So,
very helpful.
I move approval.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okey doke. Motion passes and the minutes are approved as presented. Next, I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our July 10, 2025 meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? You're opposed to?
No, I'm not opposing.
Oh,
We were done with that. I was raising my hand.
okay. Let me just finish that the motion passes and the minutes are approved as presented. Now, did you want to say something, Molly?
I think we could use some introductions.
So
And we have a guest with us who wasn't part of your spiel, I think.
that's true. So do you have any plans to introduce our guests? It sounds like.
I don't have them in the script, because we kind of went over it in roll call. Brandon, would you like to share your news and we can get into where Eric?
Yeah, so this is the last meeting that I'm gonna be the staff liaison, so Eric Brubaker, the associate planner, is gonna take over staff liaison duties.
Okay,
That's pretty much it.
Thank you for your service.
yeah.
We appreciated you.
And our representative from Spot, could you just help me remember your name?
Yes, I'm Donna Griffin. I'm the Spot Bus Executive Director, and I just showed up because I want to see what's going on with all of you all and offer any support or assistance in any way we can. We've got a lot going on and just interested in what else going on. There's that multimodal transportation plan piece and the bike ped piece and transit fits with that,
Okay,
all those things.
thank you, Donna. Let the record show that read. Okay. All right. Next, we'll move on to old business, beginning with reports from the subcommittees. So,
We have two new members.
uh-huh.
Should we be doing some introductions?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, would you like them to say a little bit about what they're, who they
Well,
are and why
and
they're
they
here?
probably want to connect names with faces of ongoing board members too.
All right.
Sorry about this.
Katie, you came first. You want to say a little bit about why you're here?
Sure, yeah. I would get the newsletter from Ponderay Peddlers, and they said they were looking for somebody for the committee, and I'm very passionate about biking and I guess walking around town too. I live a couple blocks away from here, and I've recently got back from a trip to Europe where I spent a week biking around Belgium and some time in Amsterdam, and they have really incredible biking infrastructure, which kind of inspired me. I grew up biking, and yeah, so I think that's kind of why I was interested.
All right. Thank you. And Sally, what brought you here?
Kind of the same thing. I see the newsletters and I saw I think they had, from the city, looking for members for this. I live in South Sandpoint also. My kids are all over town on foot and bike as I and my husband, and we have one of our neighbors is, handicapped and uses Spot transport, and my kids ride the hell out of that too. over that. And he has, my neighbor has struggled with some of the accessibility in the community, and we are very fond of him and like for him to have easier ways to get around town.
You could see Molly grinning broadly. He's been providing this perspective for us for a while, so I'm sure.
Enhancements benefit all of us. I
Cool.
love not opening the door at the grocery store.
All right. Thank you, Sally. And we're now ready to get on to subcommittee reports. I think I'll ask, MTMP, is that what we're calling it now? Does that group have anything to report from this past month?
No, it's hard to meet in the middle of summer, and this subcommittee did not meet.
Okay,
We have some things on our plate, and we'll be scheduling for early next month, I think,
all right.
hopefully.
And the development subcommittee, they have anything to report at this point?
Another meeting.
Okay. Events subcommittee, I know has met and does have a little to report, and Erin said she would discuss that a little bit, so go for it, please, Erin.
Okay, so I ran into Holly after our last meeting and I kind of asked her, she works with the city, if we should just hold like a survey or do in person, and she said it's really more well received to do in person, but also have the ability to comment online for those that can't attend. So we were thinking, definitely after school starts back, maybe September, October, do a couple open houses, maybe one at the Lutheran church and one at the library. Maybe one 11 to 1, 11:30 to 1, and one 5:30 to 7. We would probably need maps available with sticky notes or whatever, so people could comment and say where they would like more accessibility or sidewalks. So we would probably need to know who to work with at the city to advertise, help us promote and get these maps. Let's see. And we would like to know, we want to make sure that other members would probably be able to volunteer and participate, because there's only 3 of us, I think, on the committee.
Other members of this.
Of this group,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
We were thinking possibly doing snacks or childcare, especially at the evening one, or wait, was it the evening one? Yeah. Maybe high school volunteers if we could get them. So yeah, we just wanted to get input to see if everybody thought that was a good idea, if there was changes, if.
To talk about.
Partly the sidewalk in lieu
Oh.
fees where they can be spent, but
right.
Brandon said it also any other, like,
other.
right? Not just sidewalk in lieu fees areas, right? Or,
Well, I'm not sure what we're talking about. What,
we were talking about
what are
this.
these open houses about?
Well, the sidewalk and lieu fees, you said it'd be good to get input from the public, but also not just the in lieu fees, just where they feel. That's what we talked about at the last meeting.
The comment I made, the in lieu fees was where Brandon started. and-
Yes.
But then he, as I recall, he expanded and said, you really want to know what people want. And the mayor is thinking about putting on in the spring 1% for roads and sidewalks. And last time when that went down to defeat, we didn't know where people wanted and where they were gonna go. But these open houses could give us input on where people want sidewalks and how they want the money spent. And that might help generate money, because people would go, oh yeah, from my area, I get these sorts of things, and so, yeah. So the in lieu plus, you know, whatever money the city has to spend, what are priorities? If they're gonna apply for grants, you know, whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and we were thinking of possibly starting with the priority network map in the multimodal plan, right? There's already been some input, a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
I don't.
Every street has a vehicle functional classification. The priority pedestrian thing doesn't have every street. And in the mid-2000s, there was a classification for every street in Sandpoint for pedestrians, low, medium, and high. And I was going to bring to the next MP meeting that, which needs dramatically updating, but the low ones were ones where no sidewalk was required. In lieu fees would happen there. And then everything else in the grid and in north along Boyer, where at that point, not much had been built, was medium or high. And then.
I think we're wandering away from the
Okay,
youth that
but-
we're trying to plan.
But this could be part of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe it would make sense for us on the events committee to invite Molly as a guest at
Oh,
our
yeah.
next meeting or when we're planning this event. But I think what I had hoped for from this meeting is finding out, are people on this committee willing to attend an afternoon or evening meeting? Even if they're not part of the events committee, because we need more people than us.
We should probably have at least 3.
Yeah.
If we're gonna have public showing up.
Oh, yeah.
So we would come up with some dates and ask you to volunteer either for the afternoon or evening, or Molly, if you want to do both, that would be tickety boo. So
Anything.
maybe Brandon, I should be asking Eric at this point, what kind of support we could get from the city. Sorry, it's not really quite fair, but that's where you are.
Well, I'll find out.
Okay.
What do you mean by support from the city?
Well,
The advertising, we can't just as a committee advertise ourselves, right? Like, we'd have to get it approved by somebody from the city that we're advertising this open house on behalf of the pedestrian advisory committee.
Yeah,
So a couple things from the city.
yeah, the public works department is gonna, set the date of the meeting and probably advertise through the normal channels.
so
And then
they
what-
would prefer to set the date themselves rather than having us do it, and would staff come to it?
Yeah, there almost certainly be staff there.
Uh-huh,
So it's actually. The committee's supposed to be supporting staff. Staff's not supporting the committee. So what the city, what the staff would be asking for is help. With this committee of promoting that event once it's created
mm-hmm,
and attending. The meeting to, have discussions with people and gather input about what the public wants. To see in the next multi-modal transportation.
so what is our next step? Do we need to speak with someone on staff, or do you, or just Eric at this point? It sounds like Eric.
So, yeah, I will probably work with Holly. And probably Jason as well, because I think this is one that really transcends the silo, so. Figure out what the city needs from you and detail, but obviously, if we're looking for times and dates, we need to look well in advance.
Mhm.
And find a few times and dates that generally work for the folks on the committee and take it from there.
So who makes the next move? Is that you?
Yes,
And then
I'll
you
make the next
report back to us?
I'll make the next move, but
Okay, cool.
it'd be helpful to me to have some guidance in terms of. This is brand new to me, so what was the thinking in the room about when this would be? Where it would be?
I was thinking late September, maybe into October, after everybody's back at school in their routines, because everybody's gone in the summer. And then we were some people had mentioned we should do a couple, so the library is always a good one, and then the Lutheran church, cause that's like a voting precinct over there. The First Lutheran Church or whatever.
Mhm.
So those were the two we had kind of discussed.
Mhm.
And maybe doing one lunchtime-ish and one evening-ish, just so more people might get to attend.
Okay, and pretty much the same day, do like an afternoon, or would they?
Or it could be different days, whatever works better for everybody, I guess.
Eric, do you need a liaison on the subcommittee to bounce ideas off of or ask questions of?
That would be great. Cool.
Would you be willing to do
I
Little
that?
point of contact.
You can do it.
Okay.
It's Aaron.Billings at
I gotcha.
LPS. Yeah.
Cool. Nothing further, I believe, from the events committee. I'm on it, so I was there.
And checking the ordinance that creates us, facilitate community outreach through engagement efforts to raise awareness about efforts to improve pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure and gather input from residents on potential solutions as directed by the mayor or city council. So this definitely falls in our bailiwick.
Yeah.
Working with staff.
Yeah. So. Events committee, we have one committee left that has not reported. That is intersections. I'm on that subcommittee. I know that it did meet and we have some suggestions that will come up when we discuss this change to ordinance city code 7310H. Do any intersections meters, remember anything else that we would want to bring up? Okay, so if we intersections people are okay with going on to when this comes up later in the meeting, we'll forego a further report now. So I can now give the chair to Brandon for an update on phase 2 of the Division Avenue corridor improvements.
Okay, so this has been on the, this has been on the agenda a few times, but we never got to it, due to time. So if you'll notice, I think 3 years ago, the city did a project of a couple blocks on Division, adjacent to the high school on the east side of Division, where we built sidewalk and curb ramps on the east side. This would be the next phase of that, for 2 blocks north of where that ended, so from Superior to Pine Street. So through the area where the bowling alley is and that life care center on Division there. So you can see on your screen here, this is kind of an overview. In a nutshell, we're doing essentially the same thing that we did on the first phase, which is limiting work to the east side of the street. We have additional right of way that there's curbside sidewalks right next to the curb. And so we have this common problem where in the winter, our snow plows have to pile snow on the sidewalk and then it's impossible to shovel. So there's nowhere to walk. So we're moving the sidewalk all the way out as far as we can to the edge of the right of way, providing a buffer zone between the curb and the sidewalk for snow storage and for pedestrian safety. And in addition, we're moving the curb line further into the street. Right now, there's more pavement width than what's needed for vehicles. So we are, the plan is to eliminate that continuous left turn lane, which in my opinion is not warranted, or there's never been a study that determines that it's warranted. It was just kind of put in. So we're gonna eliminate a lot of turn lanes, and in a nutshell, we're taking space away from vehicles and giving it to pedestrians, I suppose. So it'll also allow us to do a standard bike lane on the east side, in addition to having a lane of traffic in both directions.
The bike lane is where the snow will be stored, or will it actually be plowed out of the bike lane and onto the?
The snow's stored in this between the sidewalk and the curb.
Okay. Yeah,
There's not a swell.
there's not a.
So this is like kind of a screenshot of the first little section of it. You can see we're updating the curb ramps as well. A lot of those curb ramps are currently the diagonal style that point at a 45-degree angle onto the intersection. The new federal guidelines for public infrastructure discourage those, and so we're trying to put in standard curb ramps, which it's a separate curb ramp for basically each crossing. And moving the sidewalk further away from the street, like I said, replacing some of the driveway approaches. Potentially discussing with the private property owners if there's a way to eliminate or reduce the number of driveway approaches that hasn't been decided yet. We're still kind of in the planning stages of it. This is I guess I would say a preliminary engineering drawing that I drafted up a couple months ago. Uh, and yeah, you can see that there will be this bike lane where my cursor is right here. And then instead of this continuous curb lane, you can kind of see faded in the background is where the continuous curb is. We're just gonna put a center line stripe down the middle of the road. That would allow it so that when we come back and find funding to do a future phase on the other side of the street, it would basically be a mirror image of that. So the full build out goal is one lane of traffic in each direction, bike lanes on both sides. At intersections where we need a turn lane where it's warranted, we will transition those bike lanes into sharrows of the traffic lane and then provide a turn lane for the appropriate distance instead of continuous all the way through the corridor. So you can see this is basically the Pine Street intersection. This is where it ends. That four-way stop gets a lot of pedestrian traffic. So again, fixing the curb ramps and limiting the scope to one side of the street. And then eventually we'll get to the other side. I don't know what the plan is for the next phase after this, whether we're gonna try to do, a phase on the opposite side of the street or could continue on the east side further north. That's to be decided.
Right.
Yeah.
On the Pine Street intersection, if you're going louder, sorry, on the Pine Street intersection, so you're going north on Division, is that eliminate the left turn onto Pine?
No.
Okay.
No, so at the
Bicycles into the traffic lane, that intersection?
yes.
So, I would just like to note at the corners and especially at Division and Pine. I did some research and saw that NACTO and America Walks and some others say that a more compact corner radius makes it more visible for pedestrians and improves pedestrian safety and makes vehicles turn slower. So working with the Safe Routes School District, we recommend that the radius be as small as possible as this is highly traveled corridor by the student.
Can you help me remember what we mean by small radius? I know Brandon explained this last week, but does that mean instead of a broad angle here, we want it's narrow an angle?
Yeah,
Okay.
the Erie and St. Clair between your house and mine. Those are what we would call a small radius.
Right, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And those really let everybody see everybody. They're good, complete streets radius. And we're a complete street city because
So is that what you're recommending for?
The corners, especially Division and Pine, but like, cause Superior is like a big sweeping corner if you're down by the high school.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a crossing guard there at least, to help with the,
Not Superior. It's in Michigan.
Michigan. Yeah, you're right.
So if we want to recommend narrower curb radii, is that? Brandon, is there some official way for us to do that, or is it too late for that change to be made, or? where
Yeah,
are we
that's
at
why,
with that?
that's why it's being presented, so it's just like every other project that we presented. The committee needs to organize and come up with a list of recommendations and vote on them.
Ah,
And
okay.
they'll be passed off to the Public Works Department as they develop the final product.
That sounds like a job for the intersection subcommittee.
sure, or how soon do you need those?
There's no deadline.
Fair enough.
All right.
Brandon, what are the radiuses as shown?
I don't know.
And the timeline for this, improvement is,
Probably next year. The original goal was to try to get it done this year. I'm not sure if we have staff resources for project management to get it completed, but possibly this fall.
Then you would need a recommendation from us pretty soon if you hope to do it this fall, right?
I mean, it's always better to get the recommendation in as soon as you can,
So
but there's not a timeline for the project established yet.
we can certainly do that by the next meeting like this.
Does anybody have qualms about recommending the sort of standpoint standard 12-foot radius that's on most corners, or do we need an intersection maybe look?
I think that's a good question. If we have consensus here that narrower curb radii would be a good idea. Oh, do we have to have this agendized in order to be able to vote on it and make a formal recommendation?
Yes, you can bring it back next meeting if you'd like.
All right,
Intersection code subcommittee. Since we can't vote today.
And where did you say that recommendation came from, safe routes to?
Well, I work for Safe Routes for the school district, but I did some research online and like the NACTO, which is the National Association of City Transportation Officials, and then America Walks is a popular advocate for walk.
anything further about the Division Avenue corridor?
Yeah. I feel like it would be a staff responsibility to do a little more. Get myself caught up to speed on this a little bit, so I will do some research on that subject if it's gonna be an agendized action item for the next meeting. Figure out what's in there, and I had one quick question for Brandon. You mentioned that the standard had kind of changed. The newer guidance was basically that the crossing is perpendicular, is that?
Yes, yeah.
Because they were coming off on the corner. Which is good and bad for some reasons, like when you come off on the corner, you're highly visible, right? But you're not walking at straight right angles, and it seems like the curb radius conversation fits into that. Because with a tighter turn radius, you're still more visible. Is that consistent with the recommendation? Is that?
I wouldn't say that with a tighter turn radius, you're more or less visible than with a larger radius. However, the implication with a smaller radius is that you don't have to put the curb ramps as far away from the intersection, which makes it better for vehicles to stop one time before entering the intersection. So at large radius intersections, Pine and Division existing right now, if you drive that, is a great example of that. The stop bar is so far back from the intersection because the cars are required to stop at the crosswalk. If that crosswalk's too far back, cars have to stop once and then creep into the intersection in order to have visibility. So that's the implication of the smaller radius.
Would you mind pulling it up one more time, and I think I could ask the question a little more clearly, but I think I hear you, but I want to make sure I do. Doesn't really matter what intersection, but this is a good one, so. If this was coming off here and your crosswalk was here, then they basically have to stop here and there.
Well, no,
No.
not on Division, but on certain intersections where there's not adequate sight visibility.
So what I was saying is because this radius, it looks big, and I don't know if it is. But a person crossing here is a long way from a vehicle here, right? So that's the visibility piece, like those really big blown out intersections I've seen where, you know, cars stop, look left, and then start going, and all of a sudden there's a person crossing. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So it seems like a secondary advantage to the smaller radius.
yeah,
Picking your
don't
brain apart.
agree that they have better visibility if they're in the middle of the radius. I think most of the information that I've seen, if the crosswalk is not at what we call the point of curvature or at the end of the radius, that prevents a pedestrian visibility problem. So it's actually in their blind spot. if they're crossing in the middle of the radius. What you want is for the crosswalk to be after you've done turning and you're starting to go straight, that's when you can see pedestrians head on.
Gotcha.
So, I believe that's the reason why the last several years where a lot of cities were putting those diagonal curb ramps in the middle of the radius, I believe that's the reason for that recommendation, but.
That they pulled away from that. Okay, that's super helpful. I'm picking your brain hard before you take off on it. So,
And why has it shifted to the two that are parallel to the direction of travel?
What's that?
Why has the guidance shifted to two curb ramps from the one in the middle of the radius?
I don't know. the answer to that.
Seems more ADA accessible to me, cause then instead of like going off at an angle and then having to make a turn. And like,
The PROAG says that the detectable warning panels are supposed to be perpendicular to the path of crossing traffic. So when you have a diagonal curb ramp where they can go either way, it sends somebody with visibility issues out. Technically, it sends them out in the middle of the intersection. That's not what we're doing.
that's also enlightening. But
So there are certain situations where it's applicable, in high or pedestrian urban areas where you have what's called an all-way cross, where there's a signal that where all vehicle traffic is at a red light, and there's actually a signal in the cycle where pedestrians can cross in any direction, I think is the part where that's happening. Still. And PROAG does not say that it's prohibited to have those angled, what I'm calling a angled crosswalk ramp, an angled ramp. It doesn't say it's prohibited, it says that they're discouraged. Unless it's the only option.
what's PROAG?
It's the public right of way accessibility guidelines, so, the Americans with Disabilities Act, has existed for several decades, since the early nineties. And there are guidelines about accessibility, mostly for buildings, and that's what we call ADA, that's primarily focused on building accessibility. There haven't been specific guidelines for public infrastructure like sidewalks and stuff within the right of way for a long time. And that board has worked for a long time to develop these standards. They were just recently actually published in the Federal Register as their own standalone thing. So it's kind of a new thing that everybody's getting used to. But that's what we say when we say PROAG. We used to rely on the ADA standards to design crosswalks and ramps and stuff in the right of way because there wasn't another federal rule. Now it's published and specific, and so we have to follow PROAG for all the stuff we do in the right of way.
And it's also been endorsed by Federal Highways Administration and the Department of Justice. I mean, you know, they put it out and then it took a while for these other two agencies to say yes.
Thank you all for that.
Anything more on division?
I'd like to say, I think the curb radii are a problem, and I think basically what you're planning to do is outstanding. Good plan, thank you.
Cool.
So I would recommend just getting like a written list of recommendations or something to propose and have a discussion point at the next agendized meeting. You know, get a list of things, kind of like what we did the last time. And you can have a discussion and vote on it. And if there's, you know, items that small changes you want to make to that list, you can do it in the committee meeting. That's probably the most efficient way to do it.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to the downtown biking survey, and Jen, I see you as the person spearheading that.
Which is really funny because after I organized it, I did literally nothing with it. You guys all snatched the packets away and I had nothing to do last month. So I think now's the time where we turn them in. And as far as I know, that's what I've got.
Right. Do we know whether everyone was able to do all of theirs? If someone, if that got to be too much for someone, I could go.
I
do
can
it,
also
and then pack it.
retake them and count them and see if I have the right number. Yeah, we did it pretty informally, so
Are these to be turned into Brandon, which is?
I believe so.
Is
That was
now,
the plan.
do you want a Brandon or do they go direct? Yeah, right. So,
It's not just that he's the liaison, it's also, as I think I mentioned this when I originally brought it to your attention, but. The primary use of this is actually gonna be the planning department, which is Eric's department under Jason Welker. Jason's pushing to develop some master plan stuff for downtown, including. Bicycle infrastructure, and so. But, the planning department is really focusing on these big picture things, I think.
Well, it's, my understanding was, and maybe I'm wrong, but the city redid its parking lot, and so now it owes downtown, I'll say, 23 bike parking spots. And so we were supposed to come up with a recommendation for that, but then this survey happened. And so presumably out of this will come some information to help locate those 23 bicycle staples, right?
No, not right. So the parking lot downtown does not require bicycle parking spaces. You need to think of downtown as a single parking facility. So, one block is not a parking lot. The city parking lot's not, we're kind of trying to think of downtown as one parking facility and spread out bicycle parking throughout the whole thing. So, again, our code has, required bicycle parking amounts tied to building permits. So when you do a building permit, in many cases, you're required to provide a certain number of vehicle spaces. And then in addition, you're required to provide a certain number of bicycle spaces based on the number of required parking spaces. The downtown parking lot is a city-owned lot. It's not a building permit, and there are no required parking spaces. So that section of the code is not applicable to the downtown parking lot. But what staff is looking for is input on where this committee wants to add or move bicycle parking in the entire downtown core. That's the purpose of the survey.
So are we at a place where we can discuss that, or do we need kind of a summary map that shows all the parking we already have? I don't know whether this is for you, Brandon, or you, Eric, or you, Jen. If you were handed those surveys today, Eric, what would you do with them? Sorry to put you on the spot.
I'm not gonna hand them to you today, because I think I'm
So-
missing a little bit.
I just need a little bit of a backstory, but I think I just got it
Mhm.
in the general objective, and I think we've been looking at this as. I think the district is a good way to think about. Parking,
The whole city as,
well, the downtown
Right,
district, so
yeah.
what I think we're doing. Is taking an inventory of what we have, finding the voids, and finding a recommendation from this committee to fill those voids. Is that what we're doing?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think, probably get the surveys done, pass them off to Eric, and he will work with Jason Welker on somehow compiling them or consolidating them into.
Yeah.
Into something. I don't know what form that'll
I
take.
think we have 98% of it, so it'll take me one day to just confirm that, and then I'll come find you and
Perfect.
you can take it to Jason.
Yep.
Does that sound good?
Yep, even if I'm not there, drop them off with my name on it downstairs.
so I think we answered my question though, is which, if, in order for me to feel like I could make a useful recommendation about where bike parking should be, I would like to know where it is now.
Right.
And for that, we would need the consolidated map. And it sounds like you're gonna make sure that Eric has the data, and Eric, you're gonna try to present it in some way that we can
Yeah,
provide
yeah,
input.
we'll try to make it useful.
Cool. Thank you. Anything further about bike parking? Okay. Now, we're going to move on to the revised amendments to City Code 7-3-10-H regarding the sidewalk walk in lieu fee program. We already talked about having an event to gather data about the expenditure of in lieu fees in general, but this is more specifically referring to current code about that program, and we don't need public input for that feedback. The planning commission is requesting our review. Brandon, do you have any more you want to present about that? I know the intersections committee has some things they want to present.
No, just some background. So staff took a agenda item to the planning and zoning committee to make a recommended change to the code. The process is staff takes something to P and Z. If they approve it, it gets referred to council, and council can approve changes to code. They're the last step, but when it was taken to P and Z, they had some discussion and decided they wanted staff to bring it back to the proposed changes to this committee for their recommendation before bringing it back to P and Z. So that's where we're at. Again, the committee needs to organize and get a list of what their recommendations are and agendize them and vote on them
And
as soon as you can.
can you pull up that proposed change on the screen so we can all see it?
Intersections.
No, well, actually, there's Molly's, the intersection committee proposals, and then, but there's also Eric, or what I think of as Brandon's proposals. So either or both of those, I think, would be helpful as we discuss things further, Brandon. Molly, do you want to present what the intersection subcommittee talked about with respect to this change?
Yeah, is it in the packet somewhere?
It is in the packet. Your recommendations were in the packet, but that's what I'm
So
asking.
that's where we should start. I just.
So do you want me to bring it up or no?
Sure.
Yes,
bring up our
please.
proposed. The code mentions the necessity to build sidewalks. But it doesn't allude to curb ramps. Other places in the code, overall, there is mention of curb ramps when sidewalks are built. This is an important ADA and complete streets thing, and some recent sidewalks have been built without curb ramps. And so inserting them wherever an outside developer or informal developer might look, so that they are aware from the beginning that they are required, seemed important to the intersection committee. And so we were suggesting adding the word sidewalks and curb ramps at any intersecting roadways, something to that effect. So that if it's in the middle of the block, there's not an intersecting roadway. If it's a T intersection, there will be one intersecting. And if it's a X corner, there will be two. Just for that additional awareness in talking with applicants from the beginning. So it is in the city, it does show in the drawings, but since we've seen some examples recently of not having curb ramps, it seemed like this was a nice additional piece for both ADA and complete streets. So, and you very seldom open an ordinance up for changes. It's an expensive, long process. And so if there's anything you want while it's open, that's your moment to get it. So it's not like, oh, well, next year we'll suggest it, blah, blah. So that was why.
Is that the only thing? I thought, I can't find it.
I don't think so.
That was the only thing.
Oh, I need to.
Um,
Packet. see what it said.
My only concern is that there already is code that says there already are supposed to be ramps. But the ramps aren't being built, so that's why I believe Wally is suggesting that we add this language. I just have mixed feelings about duplicating language. I think it's already required, then it's an issue of enforcement or. Oh, not enforcement, that's not quite the right word, but. Doing what the code says as opposed to adding more language, which I think just. Makes things more complicated. Anyone else? Please.
I'm sorry, I had something else. I didn't have a comment on that, but I hear what you're saying as far as the duplication of language, yeah.
Mhm. Any other thoughts or concerns about that? Wasn't there something about?
Okay, so just to be clear, the direction from planning and zoning to this committee was not. Let's open the whole code up and make any changes that you personally want to change about it. That's not what they said. Staff brought a specific code change, which is up on your screen right now, to planning and zoning. They asked for this committee to provide their recommendations on the proposed code change. And not to open up the whole code and make a bunch of changes and start reorganizing stuff around.
So not. to
So,
suggest other code
This
changes.
committee can certainly agendize a recommendation for any area of code that they would like to present to staff as a proposed code change, but that's not what we're talking about right now. We're talking about a very, very specific part of the code, which is up on your screen. And in a nutshell, the current code says that you can use sidewalk in lieu fees instead of building sidewalk only for building permits. So there's two ways that we trigger private development to build sidewalk along the public street frontage in front of their property. Number one is when they apply for a building permit, like a single family house or a commercial building, so forth. You can use sidewalk in lieu fees for that. The other way that we can trigger sidewalk construction is through the subdivision process. So dividing property into lots, creating lots, that's a subdivision. You're also required to do sidewalk along all existing public street frontages as part of that process. What this section of the code right now says is that you are not allowed to pay sidewalk in lieu fees instead of build the sidewalk. It says you have to build the sidewalk, full stop. It doesn't matter if it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter if there's trees in the way. It doesn't matter if there's not room. It says you have to build the sidewalk.
But only for the subdivision, not for building.
For any, adjacent to any lot within the sub.
Yeah.
So there are certain situations where it does not make sense to build sidewalk. I mean, and again, we're talking about subdivisions, so a lot of people think like University Place or these large, multi-lot subdivisions. A subdivision could be somebody that lives on a house in South Sandpoint and they want to split the lot in two because they have a large lot and they want to sell an open portion of it to somebody to build a single family house on. And what we're saying right now with the current code is that you have to build sidewalk along both of those lots. Even though they're not constructing anything, there's no construction proposed, they're literally just moving lot lines around. You have to build sidewalk. And there's a lot of cases where that doesn't make sense. And so what this code change proposes is very simple and specific. It just says you can now, the staff has the option to allow sidewalk in lieu fees to be paid instead of do those frontage improvements for the subdivision.
Okay,
And this is all sizes of subdivision? I'm sorry.
Yes,
It's all sizes,
yes,
not just the single family home divided in two.
yes, correct.
do we have any concerns about some people, builders not inadvertent sequelae, inadvertent responses to this, like, getting 80 units on a lot, like we're getting downtown? Was our concern was?
Yeah, at Third and I think it's Idaho. Without, my understanding is, without the city approving it the way they're supposed to approve sidewalk, somebody read this and put in sidewalk that does not go to the curve. It does not have curb ramps. And so there are 3 new houses with no access unless you come in from the alley here, you go around the corner and you go out the driveway at the end. And it's a block from Third Street Pier.
So I'm sorry, I don't follow how that affects this code change. Are you concerned that this code change would allow that?
No, I think the one that intersection committee is suggesting would help preclude that kind of sidewalk being built when a small developer is not reading the whole code, but just looking at what allowed them to divide their land.
Mhm. And is it not the responsibility of the city to tell that developer what they should do?
It's there 2 years later, but if they don't, if this, our city staff is really busy.
Mhm.
They,
That specific situation doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about here, so. That had nothing to do with in lieu fees.
no,
There's sidewalk built along the entire frontage. What you're saying is there's no ramps at the corner, and the reason that there were no ramps built is because there's nothing on the other side of the intersection to go to.
but people walk, they wanna
Okay,
get
well,
off the
I'm not
street.
trying to argue about it, but I'm saying it has nothing to do with the sidewalk in lieu fee. It's a totally separate issue.
So this change would not be related to that issue at all, is what you're saying?
Not at all.
Okay.
Well, maybe they could have just paid in lieu fees instead of building a sidewalk, if this does pass, correct? But that would have been at the discretion of Public Works, and in that case, probably wouldn't have passed because it is a good area for sidewalks.
Actually, in that specific situation, they already could have used the in lieu fee because that was just a building permit.
It was just,
Yeah.
totally different.
I have a question about this. So who makes the decision that they're eligible to pay the in lieu fee versus they have to build the sidewalk?
Good question. The public works director makes that determination.
So it's not the person that's applying for the.
That's correct. And it was not clear in the previous code. So when this code was written, it didn't specify, it just said this is an option. And it wasn't clear whether it was the homeowner who got to decide or the developer who got to decide or city got to decide. And so we actually went, staff went to city council and did another code change last year on this section of code to make it clear that it's the public works director or city engineer's discretion. And we also changed the fee itself.
Well,
And can I ask how much what that fee, I know.
Yeah, it's $60 a lineal foot.
Sally, your first question was really good, because one of the modifications would let the homeowner decide and appear to not give staff any ability to say no, and that's G6. The property owner elects to pay a fee in lieu of construction as an alternative to meeting the construction requirements of this chapter. And under modifications, it says the city may issue a written modification if one or more of the following conditions are met. So if the property owner just says, hey, I want to pay an in lieu fee, I don't see how staff can say no.
I'm sorry, where is that? Can we see that?
Let me pass around. So I have divided my comments into timing, continuity, and enforcement, and in lieu. And we're talking about in lieu. So let me pass those around. But the very first thing in this ordinance is it says the purpose of this section is to provide sidewalks in support of a multimodal transportation plan that is functional for all users and consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan. And so any changes we recommend should, I believe, be consistent with that purpose. And that's on my other sheet about finding continuity and enforcement. But in talking about in lieu.
So, Molly, I'm still getting back to what you're talking about is in section G, and maybe we want to do something to make a change there. But it does not seem, where did it go?
Brandon just put it up.
To be related to this subsection of H, that Brandon is asking us specifically for recommendations about. I did not understand that at our intersection subcommittee meeting, but it seems to me now that in order to answer Brandon's question, we don't need to address the question you're suggesting about section G. Maybe we want to take that up and make some other suggestion about that.
You're more than welcome as a committee to make recommendations about any part of the code that you see fit as another agenda item. All I'm saying is, the question before you is very simple and specific. Do you want to allow subdivisions to participate in the in lieu fee program or not? Full stop.
So given those limitations on the question, do we feel like we're in a position to vote, or do we have more questions for one another or for Brand?
I
Just
feel
put it
like,
out there that, like, putting conditions on approving this would be a path that I can move forward on. And that would be just understanding like what the definition of, or what these decisions are based upon to then pay in lieu fees for a subdivision. What are the cases that you would, as a public works director, decide that they can pay in lieu fees for a subdivision? If it is that rare case where it's a single lot at the dead end of a street, and their owner doesn't want to pay, or doesn't want to put in a sidewalk and is willing to put in an lieu fee, it's likely to never have connectivity. I think that's an example where in lieu fee makes sense, but I think for most subdivisions, I don't think it'd be applicable.
So would you like to rewrite Brendan's suggestions so there are more specific requirements for a developer to pay the in lieu fee rather than just letting the city staff make that decision?
Yeah, I'd like to see some just general guidelines about why.
To
about when in lieu
qualify
fee to
for it.
qualify it.
Yeah, for the option.
Yeah, so if I'm hearing correctly, I think and I think that's appropriate. So the issue is, like, yeah, you don't really care whether subdivisions use sidewalk in lieu fee or not. But what you want to feel comfortable with is how that decision is made by staff. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Criteria.
So
It's just up to the property owner to be like, no, I'm definitely not putting a sidewalk in here. I'll pay you however much you want, but like, I'm not gonna put a sidewalk in here, which is what I think Molly is alluding to with number 6 here. Is kind of reads to me that they can just decide that they don't wanna do it.
they can't. So the property owner, it's not their decision.
That's
How-
what I understood.
how can they
reading
tell that
this.
from this, Brandon?
Because it says that the city staff makes the
Yeah,
decision.
section 8.
Payment of it shall be at the discretion of the public works director or city engineer, and number 6. So if we write in limitations, then we, to some extent, tie the hands of city staff. Now, to some extent, that might be appropriate, but how much do we want to do that?
I think I agree with what Reed's saying. There's some kind of general non-emotive
Sorry,
something to prove that it's a non-emotive, non-emotional decision that won't fluctuate as staff. I mean, hope you stay around for a very long time, but as staff come and go or change roles or.
So maybe what I would suggest is that, you know, maybe you're proposing a recommendation that staff, add more specific guidelines about when they're gonna
Cause I think you'll.
do the in lieu fee or not.
I think you'll do it
Instead
better.
of just leave it up to personal discretion.
Correct.
Is that what I'm hearing?
And
So like, instead of you having to write that, cause you know, like
we're gonna do a terrible job at that.
well, I don't mean that, but it's, yeah, maybe that's the direction is like, maybe you're directing staff to, investigate writing some guidelines or something like that. Before you're making a recommendation on whether these code changes get done. Does that?
Yep,
Yeah,
whether
is
it's,
that-
whether
is that
it's in
kinda
the
what you're getting
code
at?
or like a supporting document that's maintained on its own or something, because. To some degree, if you could say as defined in this supporting document, then that supporting document is probably a little easier to change, if I understand how code works. But I don't know.
Yeah, we're probably not gonna write like a separate standard. It would probably be in the
In the
code.
code, okay.
Is that kind of what you're getting at too, Molly? Like the
I-
guidelines about when so that's more structured?
And if we really did adopt a full-scale pedestrian priority, the low priority areas would not need sidewalk. All of those could be in lieu. Boop. And
Even if it's a
we
subdivision,
did it
which is
once.
why this is
We
important.
did it once, it needs dramatic updating, but there was a whole, almost year of public input. And, you know, each time staff changed, they kind of wanted to kind of go a different way, but, and that was back when the city council had a public works committee and an administrative committee. And the public works committee unanimously approved it and said, oh, that's good enough. The city council doesn't have to. So it's never been as official as it should be. But if we get low priority, dead end streets, the kind of thing he's talking about, some areas of the city that were built without sidewalk long ago, Moran Edition, where Jeremy lives, Wilderness, yeah, those gun streets. Always doing lieu there and not go, oh, should we do sidewalk, should we not? And then everything else, it's not just high priority, it's medium and high. And we've got those kind of figured out, and at that point, we actually had the high separated into 4 categories, and we had the safe routes that the schools and the kids and the teachers and the PTOs all said, yeah, these are the way kids go. So it was very comprehensive. And it seems like it's worth a look, and it's nice to have a framework you go from and make changes to. Yeah, this should be that, you know, these
Yeah.
kinds of things should be low priority too.
That makes sense, but I think it would be important not to base it solely on the pedestrian priority classification, because I mean, I'm thinking about a situation where, let's say I'm on a street, it's dedicated as low priority pedestrian, but I have sidewalk on the entire block except for in front of my house, and I pull a building permit. And this guideline says, well, we don't have to, we're gonna do in lieu fee. You'd still want to fill in that gap.
Yeah.
That street should be taken out of low priority. If it's got a lot of sidewalk on it now, it should be removed from there so that it is dead end, sidewalk free essentially, and you're not going like that one on Birch.
Oh, so we're not gonna classify entire streets on the priority. We're gonna go block by block. Is that what you're saying? So there'll be a red one and a
Let
green
me
one and a
send you
yellow one.
what was done. I have it on my computer. I'll send you what was done. You can-
All right.
Let me get a sense of what we need to do with respect to acting on this recommendation. We need to move to accept or not accept the changes that Brandon has presented to us. And it sounds like we want more specifics.
Yep.
To whatever changes are made in one way or another. It sounds like Molly has a specific framework for those. I'm wondering, Brandon, if we reject this because we want more.
Yeah,
The
let's
details.
just table it. And we have the direction from the committee to look at.
Rewrite it.
I think we have direction from this committee, I think, to maybe look into if there's a way to do those guidelines.
Okay,
And
of the
maybe,
draft.
yeah, bring up another one that's a sticking point for me, and it may not bother anybody else. In which case I'll shut up, I promise. But it moves enforcement from, oh, you can't do your short plat till it's in, to the building permit. And going back 10, 15 years, I've had now previous staff tell me that's a bad place to put it. Because all you have hanging over the property owner at the end is the occupancy permit. Their bank wants an occupancy permit if they have a mortgage. If there's no mortgage, I can point out a number of places where the sidewalk wasn't done because they just went, oh, I don't need an occupancy permit. So the big subdivision code,
Just,
10-1- talks about a lien on the property, other ways of enforcement with approval of the legal counsel. So it would be nice to have legal counsel tell us, how do we make sure if these sidewalks are put off, that they actually get built?
So, again, with respect to this particular action item, Brandon, you're suggesting we table this and you can rewrite it with edits that provide some more guidelines. Molly, can you make specific recommendations to Brandon for us to?
It would be nice to
Vote.
have opinion of legal counsel to the city. If this moves from being required in order to finish your short plat, how does the city absolutely ensure enforcement? What legal ways does the city have? What requirements can they do?
Okay, so just to be clear, I think, I understand what you're saying, and the confusion is partly my fault, cause I presented this with a different code change originally to planning and zoning, which we kind of put on the back burner and we're no longer pursuing, but it was the idea, in addition to what you see in front of you, it was an idea of, allowing some smaller subdivisions to defer the construction of that sidewalk to building permit at a later date. That's no longer on the table. To be clear, on this code change you see before you, for subdivisions to use in lieu fee, they have to pay the fee before the final plat is created. In other words, before the lots are created. There's no other way to defer that. That makes sense.
If they are required to build a sidewalk, then that will also take place before? Okay,
So,
so
yeah.
neither one.
I should have explained the background on that. So, forgetting about this code change, the way that subdivisions work right now is, all subdivision, you have to do frontage improvements on all public streets. You either have to build that before final plat, you have to build it before the subdivision's done, or the code also gives them the opportunity to bond for it for 2 years. And what that means is that they go to an insurance company and they're paying monthly payments, on the amount of what it would cost, of an engineer's estimate of what it would cost to do the sidewalk. Then that allows them to actually develop it and then build the sidewalk within 2 years. And if they don't, then the city can pull that bond and build the sidewalk.
Interesting, okay.
So, that's still that's still the mechanism.
And that's great.
Thank you. That clarifies the question I had, so.
So,
So we're down to in lieu.
Well,
And Kirkland.
let me just say, Brandon, do you have enough input from us to make the changes you think you need to make to this so that we can act on it at our next meeting?
Does that make sense to you, Eric? Like, I think maybe at the, let's get staff, the relevant staff together and have a discussion about like staff proposing guidelines like we talked about here on when the in lieu fee is used and when it's not.
Right.
And then we'll bring that back and bring it as a discussion item on a future meeting. Maybe a decision. We can have further discussion on this committee about it.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think I'm hearing it, and basically, we'll lay out draft criteria.
Yeah.
For the committee to review. Ideally, one of those criteria would be accommodating to such time as we have a priority system in place, so it would work in the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah. Yeah, and then
with
maybe
some reference to plans or something like that, I
Yeah.
think we can get there.
I'd like to offer a suggestion. To consider
Can we speak
criteria,
up a little, please?
offering a suggestion is as you consider criteria, maybe either or in addition to consider any guardrail type ideas too, for, it
Right.
not just meets this,
Right.
checklist of
But things that
criteria.
would
but
disqualify it.
it doesn't go outside of this boundaries.
And try to objectify it and not be.
Yeah, I agree. I think with these code it's a fine line and it's a delicate thing that you have to, like a tightrope you have to walk, because you want to put guidelines in place so staff has direction on what the city leaders are directing them to do. But also it can't be so rigid that there's a million different situations and it causes problems for staff. So I think that, that's a great solution.
Do we need to do something official to table this, Haley?
No, we can
Okay,
just take it to
cool.
the next month.
Any further concerns about this issue right now? Okay. For new business, I wanted to talk about subcommittee assignments for our new members and also whether some of our members who are on subcommittees now want to remove themselves from subcommittees because they have their fingers in too many pies. I, for example, would like to depart the intersections subcommittee, fascinating as it is, just because I fingers in too many pies. So, Katie, we talked with you about being on the MMTMP committee outside this meeting, and Molly was gonna get in touch with you about that. Has that happened? Is that?
We were gonna just meet after this meeting,
Okay,
and then we talked about development as well.
okay. So you have the interest in being on a couple of subcommittees?
Sure.
Do you have, do you know who to talk to about getting together with the, we're coming to you, Sally, don't worry. Getting together with the development subcommittee people? Molly,
I'm on both.
okay, cool.
We can make that
So
easy.
you two can get that lined up. Sally,
What are,
please.
what are the subcommittees?
Oh, that's a fair question. Sometimes, as you can tell, our discussions get down into details. And
Details, but-
it seems like a good idea to have some subgroup of us look more deeply into an issue and make
No, I
specific.
understand what a subcommittee is. What are these?
Oh, what are they? One of them is the events subcommittee. That right now is Erin and me and Breed, thank you. We're working on planning the events that our PED by committee is required to participate in, one each year at least.
And I'm sorry, I didn't, what is your name?
Oh, my name's Kate.
Kate.
See, we didn't do our introductions to them.
Okay, well,
I got what you were getting.
maybe next time.
The men's subcommittee is one of them.
Right. The MMTMP is the multimodal transportation master plan.
We're gonna add more letters to the acronym. The next version of it.
No.
It's gonna be this, the City of Sandpoint Multimodal Transportation.
Okay.
COS and then.
We have 9 members, so we can have 4 on any given subcommittee.
Okay,
And also, it'd be very helpful for myself to make sure that we are not violating open meeting laws. If I could get a concise answer on who is on which subcommittee, would be super nice.
I just heard 3 people on.
okay. You know, Molly and I worked on getting a list together, so I think that she and I, between us, can provide you with a list after
That'd be
this
wonderful.
meeting.
We'd be delighted.
Yeah, so
MMT.
events, MMT, the plan is the master plan for transportation, and that's a subcommittee that will be looking at that plan as it evolves, probably for several years, and considering it from the perspective particularly of pedestrians and bicyclists. The intersections subcommittee.
I'm sorry, who's on that?
Oh, who's on MMTMP? MMT, wait a minute.
I am
Reed.
Reed, by the way,
Aye.
and then
So we have-
Radley.
Oh,
Maybe
Radley.
Sally will be able to give you the updated list.
so we have,
We have 3 right now, Radley
so we could use 1 more.
Read it to you, Radley, and
and
It
Molly.
used to be Evan, but he's Brad.
Yeah,
And
but
myself,
Evan's gone.
Yes.
Brad, or.
And now, yeah. Now Katie, so that one is filled. That has 4.
Okay, that's right. If we had more, then we'd have a quorum and we can't have that.
We can't do that.
So that's intersections. Is
That was
that,
in-
that was MFTMP. So intersections subcommittee is Julie Perchinsky and Molly and me, Kate and Jen. So that has 4, but I would like to remove myself, so there is an opening on that one. And the 4th one is developments. Who's on developments?
Jen?
Us 3.
I
She's
took
trying to get
myself
out.
off for summer, especially.
Development looks at new housing development, any kind of real estate developments being planned and how they will affect pedestrians and
Typically
bicycles.
larger developments.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Katie, what were you saying?
And myself, so it would be Molly, Jen, and myself then on development for
Okay.
now.
If you're being added, yeah.
All right. So, Sally, are there any of those that you would like to join? Usually they meet for an hour or two between meetings of the larger committee, and sometimes they propose specific language for the larger committee to vote on.
The intersections does interest me.
Okay, so,
And I'd be willing to help out on events, although event coordination is definitely not my strong suit, but I can follow directions.
well, we could take a fourth member, but do you really want to be on 4 subcommittees? My experience has been that it's been quite a bit of work.
That'd be two.
Yes, she can't,
Okay,
we're, the master plan one's full without her, so she can't be on that one.
okay. So you could be on
Intersection.
intersections.
Intersections.
Would you like to
Yeah.
join us on events? We're all kinds of fun.
Well, what, was it developments that was pretty low because
Developments
of,
is pretty low,
Erin?
especially if Erin's still kind of cycling in and out. I don't know how you're interested you are in coming back during the school year or not.
Well, I think it's hard to be on almost more than one, because then you're going to meeting, you're going to this meeting, you're going to another meeting, then you're going to another meeting, and a lot of people can't show up to all those meetings.
Yeah.
So
Picking
that's
one
my
to start.
opinion.
Well, maybe I'll start with intersections.
yeah, I think it two could work. I'm on 3 and that gets difficult.
Well, which one are you comfortable? If you want to just start with one, that's fine.
Intersection.
Intersections, okay.
Intersections, and then I'm
All right.
happy to help on events or developments, whichever one you feel like. If you said you're for sure on developments, so we have 3 developments that will help. So we did. Erin needs to decide if she's a hard no from now on, or if she'll come back in. Are you?
Was
just
there
gonna-
Bradley on it too right now, or no?
No, there's just us 3, add then Evan, but he hadn't really. So. She can let us know, but you can just stick with the events if you want.
So does that leave Sally on developments and intersections? Is that correct?
Intersections and it sounds like you don't need the help on developments, is that what I heard? If we have 3, I think we're okay. Okay, so I can help out with the events, then does that look like you need a 4th on that one?
That'd be great if you want. I'm happy with that. Yeah. That's
Erin,
Me, Kate, Reed.
and Reed.
yeah, so you're right, that looks good.
And do you know Haley's email? So maybe you could send her a copy of that list that you just made?
I just made one too, and I'm getting with Sally after the meeting.
Oh, okay. Cool, so we're on top of that. Anything else about subcommittee assignments?
I'll just put it out there that I'm gonna have to pull out from the events subcommittee.
Okay,
I've got too many fingers in.
I
the
think
pie
that'd
right
be,
now.
I think 3 on each subcommittee is fine.
and we'll have
Because
Sally.
then you're not
start.
making people do too much or something.
Yeah, we'll miss you.
I put a lot of sense.
Then the final thing is just general announcements or comments, any?
Question for next month's agenda. Our city planner, Bill Dean, had expressed interest in coming in and doing a brief kind of education agenda item to kind of, I think to kind of explain some parts of the subdivision process. If that's okay, to put him on the next agenda. If anybody disagrees or does that sound good to
That
everybody?
is very helpful.
Yeah,
We don't
it's-
have a lot of other questions hanging over us right now.
If you haven't met Bill yet, he's very, very experienced. We're really lucky to have him. He was a planning director for a much larger municipality
Mhm.
previously. He's got a ton of experience in large cities and small cities, so he really understands the development process. So I think it would be kind of valuable to get involved.
Yeah, great, awesome.
Excellent.
So anyway, if Eric, if you want to add that
Yeah,
as a placeholder.
definitely.
And other comments, I won't be at the next meeting. I will be out of town, so Molly will be conducting that one.
So Haley, you and I'll work together on the agenda maybe with Eric.
Anything else? Are we ready to adjourn? Okay, with no further business on the agenda, this meeting is now adjourned at 12:50 PM.